Easter is supposed to be a time of renewal, but for some people, it brought nightmares that never ended. Today, you'll hear 3 true accounts from those who discovered that during Easter, some things aren't dead. They're just waiting. If you're alone, maybe it's better to save this video for tomorrow. Story 1, the Easter egg that should never have been opened. This happened on Easter 2011, in a small town in the countryside of Minas Gerais, Brazil. My name is Daniel, and I was 12 years old at the time. My family always celebrated Easter, with old traditions, but none of them prepared me for what I found that Sunday morning. I woke up early, excited for the egg hunt my dad had set up in the backyard. My grandmother's house was surrounded by a dense forest, and he would always joke, "There are eggs hidden where the eye can't see." While rummaging through the bushes, something caught my attention. A very different Easter egg. It was larger than the others, with a rough shell, almost like leather and painted with strange symbols, upside-down crosses and shapes that resembled teeth. My sister Laura screamed, "Leave it there!" But I ignored her. It was heavy, and when I shook it, I heard a thick liquid inside. I decided to take it to my room. Little did I know that it wasn't a chocolate egg, but a trap. If you thought this story was chilling, wait until you hear the next one. Because some Easter traditions aren't about bunnies, but about things much older and hungrier. At night, while everyone slept, I grabbed a knife from the kitchen and cracked the egg. What came out wasn't filling, but a black, sticky substance, with the stench of rotten meat. And then it moved. The black mass writhed, forming something that looked like a tiny hand, with fingers that were far too long and thin. I dropped the egg, but it was too late. The thing started to grow, stretching, like a living shadow. I heard a whisper coming from it, in a language I didn't understand, but which made my ears bleed. I ran to my parents' room, but their door was locked from the inside. The last thing I saw was the silhouette of that creature, now the size of a man, standing in the hallway, with its mouth open in a smile that stretched from ear to ear. The next day, I woke up in the hospital. My parents said they found me convulsing on the floor, with black burn marks on my chest. The egg had disappeared, and no one believed my story. But every year, on Easter, I receive an anonymous message on my phone. Just a photo of a cracked egg and a voice whispering, "You broke the shell, now he can find you." Story 2, the last Easter egg hunt. I should have never returned to that town, but when I received the letter from my Aunt Agnes saying she was ill and wanted to see me one last time before Easter, how could I say no? She was the only person who truly cared about me after my parents died. The problem is, Ravens Hollow wasn't a normal place. It was one of those towns forgotten on the map where ancient traditions were still taken far too seriously. And Easter there? Well, Easter in Ravens Hollow had rules no one dared break. I arrived on Good Friday, and the air was already heavy with the smell of damp earth and something else. Something sweet, almost sickening. Aunt Agnes welcomed me at the old family house, the same dark wooden house that haunted my childhood nightmares. She looked like she'd aged 20 years since I last saw her. Her eyes, once so lively, were now dull, as if something had drained the light from them. "You arrived just in time for the egg hunt," she said, holding my face with her bony hands. "But remember, Nathan, after sunset, no matter what you hear, don't leave your room. Don't open the window, and above all, don't accept any egg that wasn't painted by human hands." I laughed, thinking it was one of those small-town superstitions. But then I noticed that every window in the house had crosses made from dried branches hanging on the frames, and the mirrors were covered with black cloth. Something about it made me swallow hard. By Saturday, the entire town seemed to be preparing for something. The children were unusually quiet, and the adults whispered to each other while painting eggs with a dark red varnish that smelled of iron, blood, I only realized what it was when I saw the town pastor cutting the palm of his hand to mix his blood into the paint. No one explained anything. They just handed me a wicker basket and told me to join the tradition. The hunt began at noon, when the church bell tolled 13 times. The children ran into the forest behind the town, and I, as the only visitor, was placed in the center of the clearing, blindfolded. I heard footsteps moving away, then absolute silence. When they let me go, I was alone. But the basket they'd given me was now full of eggs. Eggs I hadn't collected. They were larger than normal, and they pulsed slightly, as if something alive was inside. That's when I heard the first whisper. From the trees, a voice hummed an ancient melody in a language that hurt my ears. "Find one, find them all, but don't let them find you." I ran. I don't know for how long, but when I stopped, I was in a part of the forest where the trees seemed wrong. Their trunks twisted into almost human shapes, and their branches intertwined like bony fingers. And on the ground, between the roots, were more eggs. These were black, with red veins pulsing. When I bent down to touch one, it opened on its own. Inside, there wasn't a yolk. There was an eye, a human eye staring at me, blinking. I screamed, throwing the egg away, but it was too late. The other eggs began to crack one by one, and out of them came things. Small, dark creatures made of shadow and teeth. They didn't attack me. They just gathered, forming a circle around me, and began to sing. "One is here, one is there. What was lost will return." That's when I saw it. In the center of the clearing, among the trees, was a tall figure, dressed in rags that were once a pastor's suit. Its face was a cracked egg, and inside it dozens of tiny fingers writhed, trying to escape. It extended a hand to me, and I saw that in its palm was the same symbol as on the eggs, an upside-down cross made of dried blood. "You've been chosen," it whispered, with the voice of 1,000 crying children. "Now, it's your turn to hide the eggs." I don't remember how I escaped. All I know is that I woke up at my aunt's house with her crying beside me. "You shouldn't have taken their eggs," she said. "Now they'll want you back." On Easter Sunday, Raven's Hollow was empty. No children were seen, no eggs were found. But in my suitcase, when I opened it to leave, there was a single eggshell, and inside it, a tiny black hand holding a blood-stained note. "Until next year." Since then, every Easter I receive an egg at my doorstep. Always black, always pulsing. And I start to forget. Forget my name, forget what my life was like before. Because a part of me knows, next year I'll be the one in that clearing waiting for the children. And this time, I'll be the one singing, "Find one, find them all, but don't let them find you." Story 3. The Garden of Broken Crosses. It all started with an innocent invitation, or at least that's how it seemed at the time. My name is Lucas, and I'm a history professor at a small university. When I received that yellowed letter, addressed to me in an antiquated handwriting, I thought it was some sort of joke. The envelope contained only a faded business card with the words, "You are invited to join the true Easter celebration. Meet at the Garden of Crosses, April 18th at sunset." What intrigued me was the location. I had researched that region for years and had never heard of such a garden. But as a historian, my curiosity got the better of me. I arrived at the address, an abandoned property on the outskirts of the city, just as the sun began to set. The iron gate was rusty, but someone had recently opened it. Inside, a decayed garden stretched as far as the eye could see, lined with row upon row of rotting wooden crosses. Some were intact, others broken in half. And all of them had names carved into them. Children's names, that's when I saw them. A dozen figures dressed in white robes, arranged in a circle around a central cross, larger than the others. One of them turned to me. Even with their face obscured by a hood, I could feel their smile. You came, they said, in a voice that seemed to come from far away. We were waiting for the final guest. Before I could react, cold hands grabbed my arms and dragged me to the center of the circle. The largest cross wasn't made of wood. It was crafted from bones tied together with strands of human hair. And at its base, oh God, at its base was a basket full of eggs, but these eggs weren't painted. They were covered in a thin, pulsating membrane like skin. One of the cultists picked one up and placed it in my hands. "It's yours," they whispered. "Open it and see the truth." The egg was warm. When my nails pierced the surface, a thick black liquid oozed between my fingers, and then it moved. Something inside the egg writhed, and I saw tiny fingers, children's fingers, clutching at the edges of the shell. The cultist beside me began to laugh, a wet, guttural sound as the rest of the group chanted in unison, "He has risen! He has risen!" That's when I realized. The broken crosses, they weren't grave markers. They were portals, and the eggs were vessels. Vessels for something they were trying to bring back. The cultist tore off his robe, revealing a body covered in dozens of tiny hands protruding from his skin as if trying to escape from within him. "We lost them so long ago," he wept, blood red, tears streaming down his misshapen face. "But every Easter some of them return. This year you will help us bring more." The last thing I remember is the sound. The sound of thousands of shells cracking all at once, and the screams, oh God, the screams coming from inside the eggs. When I woke up, I was lying in the middle of the garden, alone. All the crosses were intact now, and in my hand, still. Clutching the empty shell of the egg was a small message written in the same black liquid. "Thank you for the gift. Until next year." I went home that night, but something came with me. Sometimes, in the silence of my room, I hear scratching coming from inside the walls. And on the last full moon, I swear I saw tiny hands pressed against the glass of my window. But the worst is that every time I close my eyes, I see that basket, and it's getting fuller, because I know what they want. And next Easter Sunday, I will help them. I will open the portals, and this time it won't just be a few children who return.